Have you ever heard the old adage, some things are lost on the youth? You know what? You know that adage, you understand that adage a whole lot more the older that you get. I was sitting here thinking this morning about a trend that existed years ago that you don't see a whole lot, or people that you don't hear a whole lot about anymore. And I'm talking about commentators. These guys, they were not quote unquote news guys necessarily, but they were social observers. And they were always out there pointing things out. And the one that always comes to mind, well, there were three. Walter Winchell was one. I guess he was more of a news guy, but he was also kind of the commentator. Then you also had Paul Harvey, who I grew to like Paul Harvey because I spent years when I did radio that Paul Harvey was on before me. And he would do, Paul Harvey would do the headlines, and then he had other things that he did too. Remember, he did the rest of the story, which had nothing to do, with the stories of the day. It was always about something that had it was almost like a parable. He'd start off, do you remember, blah, 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 blah. And then he would, all of a sudden at the end, there would be the twist, right? And he would always end it with, and now you know the rest of the story. And it's interesting, too, because all of these people, not only did they have a distinct voice in the form of the way they wrote and their opinions, but they also, it seemed like they all had a unique voice, because there you had Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. And then you had, on 60 Minutes, Andy Rooney. And I guess he came to mind this morning because I was thinking, he would always do, ever wonder why? And then he would go off into some tangent and talk about what was happening in the news and something you'd been watching all week. And suddenly they had the ability to bring your attention to something totally different and a different point of view that maybe you just totally missed out on, even though you've been watching the same story, because they brought a different perspective. It's a very important thing, perspective. We're going to talk about that a little bit this morning, but we're also going to talk about a variety of things. Hi, welcome to a Friday edition of Dan's At Home Update. And I indeed am Dan. And this would be my house. And of course, that's why we call it Dan's At Home Update. That would make sense, right? And so, again, I appreciate your being with us, flipping through some different things. I just want to get my name up there, make you understand too. KFDM.com, that's been my home for more than 3 decades. I've watched a lot of weather over 30 plus years, 34 years, and then you can add a few more at another station here in town. So I've seen a lot of tropical storms. I've sat beside a number of meteorologists, and watched them break down different things were happening. And we're going to do that again this morning, because if we're honest, that is probably, I would have to think, the number one story on everyone's mind. We'll get to the COVID numbers, we'll get to school planning, we'll get to all those things. But let's be honest, the story that most people woke up this morning wondering about is, and you may have gone to bed and it was just a tropical depression, right? Well, now it is Tropical Storm Hannah. And I bring that up too, but on KFDM.com, because at the top of the page, you will find that we have, that's it, Eye on the Tropics. Excuse me. And if you just click there, it will take you into the forecast and the tracking maps. You see where it says tracking the tropics. You click there and there it is. There is the current path of what is now Tropical Storm Hannah. And you will notice, and this might put your mind at ease just a little bit this morning, is that rather than a northward track coming across, say, north of Corpus Christi, which is kind of the original track that our meteorologist, along with the National Hurricane Center, had been talking about, they've now revised this track further south. Apparently, there's a high pressure above us, right, that blocks things from coming straight north, so it's kind of bending it back off to the south. It'll come in, if it stays on its projected track, would be south of Corpus Christi. What does that mean to us? Well, it should mean lesser amounts of rain, right? Further this direction, less wraparound coming around and hitting in Beaumont. Doesn't mean we won't get any rain, but our meteorologist, Dana Melanson, telling me this morning, he thought that probably, anywhere from a half inch, all the way up to maybe 4 inches. And we get 4 inches in an afternoon in Southeast Texas. That's no big deal for us. 4 inches. Okay. And that'd be nice. Now, the other thing that you want to keep in mind as you go into your weekend with this weather system is going to be the fact that it is not just going to be about rain. We'll have some wind effect come out of this. It is a tropical storm. So Dana was saying the projected winds probably 20, maybe 25 miles an hour. That's a whole lot less than 75 or 60 or whatever So, yes, it's going to be breezy. Will we see some rain? Most likely. Will it stick around all weekend? I'm not sure that will be the case. So that'll be interesting, but something we do have to watch. And of course, if you've been paying attention, you also know that this is just the first of a number of tropical issues that we're keeping an eye on. See, we also have Gonzalo is out there. And then there is an unnamed depression that is way, 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 way out in the Atlantic. But again, this time of year, you have to watch everything because anything can turn into something and something can turn into nothing. It can go both ways. Imelda turned into something. Hannah may turn into nothing except for, a little bit of rain over your weekend. But we'll take that anytime. Yeah. All right. Don't forget, pop up. Give us a comment this morning if you want to. We always like to hear from you. What's going on in your life, what you're doing, what you've got coming up this weekend, what do you have planned, any questions that you might have, any comments that you want to post. It's really easy to do. Also encourage you, if you don't mind, give us a like if you're watching this morning and you're a regular viewer, or if this is the first time you've ever watched. It doesn't matter to me. I still hold you just as important, but it also gives me a little bit of credibility with my bosses to be able to say, hey, there are people who do watch our live streams here on Facebook and get their information. So again, that would be appreciated. Elton Grubbs, good morning to you. Mary Walford is up this morning. Hi, Terry. In Warren. Okay. Jeannie, good morning to you as well. And we'll just run through some other folks that are up with us this morning as we go through these. You can certainly say good morning to them if you want to, just like I am. You can say good morning to them there on the Facebook page if you would like. Martha Guy, hi Martha. Also Jeannie there in Vider. Jason, good morning to you, sir. Also Carmen Thibodeau is watching over in Baytown. So Carmen, I think that you'll probably have to deal with a little bit of rain, probably around the same kind of rains that we're going to see most likely. Oh, and Carmen likes Paul Harvey. See, like I say, there are a whole group of people, though, that will have no idea who Paul Harvey, who Andy Rooney. But again, I don't know who their social influencers are today either, because I'm not frequenting their YouTube pages that they go to. So all things said, we're probably on equal footing. I know people, that I thought were cool, that were good, that they have no clue of, and it goes both ways. Sherry Pierce Barnett says, how will the weather be on Sunday? Sunday, I think that we're probably, Sherry, looking a whole lot better on Sunday. I would have to think if this thing really goes further south. And by Sunday, as I understand it, it's well on shore. So let's hope that's the case. All right. So again, please post up this morning if you want to. And if I don't read your name on the, while we're broadcasting here, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to see you. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to read your comment. We're probably not going to get to every single one of them. But, we're probably going to have a chance to look at it while we're not on the air. All right. I want to address a couple of things to this morning. And I want to get you the headlines. I want you to see the numbers. I want you to know what's going on in our community. And again, we always tell you, our community, and to my way of thinking, and hopefully it's yours too, it starts at home. It starts in your house. It starts in your family. That's the original community, and then the tribe, and then it kind of branches out from there, from your house to your neighborhood, to your city, to your region, to your area, to your state. And to me, the big picture, the national picture is the ring. Well, the world picture, I guess, is the ring on the outside of the circle. But coming in, comes all the way back down. Don't get overwhelmed. Bring it back down to where it is, to what really matters to you in your life today. All right, so let's jump in. Take a look at KFDM.com, some of the numbers, some of the stories we want to talk about this morning. Families of inmates exposed to COVID-19 in Beaumont Prison are looking for help. A very extensive story done by Angel San Juan. You can go and look. These are people who are in a very confined place. Some of them are serving for very minor offenses, but find themselves exposed, and they're very concerned. In fact, this weekend, their families are going to be demonstrating at some of the gates, trying to get people's attention. Also, TABC reverses guidelines that would have allowed some breweries to open. Some folks are really struggling in Southeast Texas, local breweries, brew pubs. They cannot do what other places do. They have not been able to open up and serve beverages. Now, you can go to a restaurant that has a bar, but you can't necessarily go to a brewery and sit down and have a beverage. In fact, you can't. So understand the plight of what some of these people in your community are facing and what they're trying to do to get people to recognize that something has to change in order for them to survive. According to one of the sources in the story, if something doesn't happen within the next month or so, 50 to 60% of these breweries could be out of business before the year is out. It's, we all know, anybody who works for a living knows it's not easy staying in business in good times. And then you throw a pandemic in and you start putting rules in place, it gets that much more difficult. So again, there are petitions out there. If you're interested, you might want to track them down. Good story about first-year teachers in Southeast Texas. Going to have to teach kids, without actually seeing them, at least for the first part of the year. Also, Drainage District 7 preparing for some heavy rains. Hopefully, they're not going to have to deal with that. Also, Mid-County, new cases. I'm going to go and show you instead, I'm going to show you the corona cases. The latest report from the Texas Tribune, nonprofit journalist site, texastribune.org. Again, I commend them on the work that they do. They try to stay up on everything. These are their numbers, and they do a good number check across the state. And the reason I think it's significant, because when you hear 4 million positive tests in this country, that's 4 million from the first day they started counting, right? Those are not active cases today. There are not 4 million people in our country that are dealing with coronavirus today. Those are 4 million people since they started counting that have tested positive. So active numbers, right, are really probably more significant than total numbers. And sometimes the really active numbers that are important are the numbers of the people who are hospitalized. So looking at this, we have 1,599 less people in the hospital this week than a week ago. That's a good thing. But we have 9,507 new cases reported yesterday alone. Okay? And then you have the number of Texans who have died. Now, this is significant because you have 173 more deaths yesterday. There are 173 people in our state that died yesterday from COVID-related issues. That's 960 more than a week ago. That's significant. All right, so those are numbers that you have to talk about. Also, numbers that we have to talk about today that I think are also significant are the numbers that we're hearing from our county judge in Jefferson County, Jeff Brannick. He told KFDM last night that as of late, and I can back this up by showing you the numbers here from the Texas Department of Human Services, or Health and Human Services, and their dashboard. So when you look up here at hospitalizations, that's a good thing. Look on the very end. The numbers are down. That's a good thing. Significant drop. Now, the problem with that is that's statewide. That's the entire state that we're looking at. But when you bring this down to the region that is Southeast Texas, again, community perspective, we are R. In R, we have 0 ICU beds available. Now, I've heard people talking about this. What difference does that make? It's no big deal. They have a lot more beds. Look, they have 356 more beds available. So to say that there are no ICU beds, that's misleading because they have beds available. The problem, as I understand it from Judge Brannick's comments, is there's not enough staff to take care of those additional beds. Yeah, they can create beds, but they can't create staff. And the problem when people going, but the number of COVID cases in the hospital is really not that significant. They're not all COVID cases, but the problem from the very beginning is where we're at now. And that problem is overwhelming the healthcare system. What happens when you have all of your ICU beds full and you don't have enough staff to take care of them? It's a serious issue to the point that Judge Brannick is asking for help from the state. He's asking the folks in Austin, can you please find medical services for us? We need additional doctors and nurses. That should be assigned to us, as to what the situation is in Southeast Texas. We've said all along, hospitalizations. Will everybody get sick? No. Will everybody have to be hospitalized? No, but they don't have to. They don't have to. Because if it becomes enough to overwhelm, then what happens when you have a car wreck? Then what happens when you have somebody that needs a cancer treatment? Then what happens when somebody has a stroke, a heart attack? And there's no available beds and there's no available staff. That is the problem, the drain on the rest of the healthcare system. So again, we know this morning, at least at last report. And again, this is really a flex and flux situation. There's an ebb and flow to hospitalizations. People come, people go, people get better, people don't get better. So beds become available. And, that's why we're paying attention to what's going on. So again, the latest from the Jefferson County judge should indicate to you this is something we got to watch. I mean, this is something, whether you agree or disagree with the numbers, you say it's serious or not serious, it overwhelms the healthcare system. That's problematic. And again, keep in mind the numbers of people who actually get ill once they get, the coronavirus is, to the people who would say it's only 10%. I'm not going to, dive into the number and say this is the most accurate number, but it's the number who do get sick and that's all it takes. It's kind of like tropical weather. It only takes one storm. You can have somebody in Colorado saying, it's going to be a very active storm season. Well, if you don't see a storm, then it doesn't matter. It only takes one named storm to make it an active season, one storm that's headed your way. Then it's an active season. Same thing, to me, good analogy. Is everybody going to get sick? No, everybody's not going to get sick. And certainly people who do test positive, not everybody's going to the hospital. But as long as it's enough of those people that get sick, that go to the hospital, it overwhelms the healthcare system, that's what we need to be paying attention to. And that's why we're giving you this information. All right, so that kind of catches us up on what's going on there. Let's see, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I wanted to get around to this morning, as it is Friday. That is not lost on me. The pandemic has not changed. I may not be able to go a lot of places. I may not have any interest in going a whole lot of places on Fridays. But you know what? It's still Friday, and it still means tomorrow I don't have to get up, and go into work. And that's what the weekend is for so many of us. By the way, I had somebody ask me, what's that clicking noise, that popping noise? I almost went into Andy Rooney there. Why is that? Well, because it's you. Every time somebody makes a comment, I have the audio up on my computer, which you can't see. I'll try this other camera, but I don't really think you can see. No, this is my other camera. You really can't see the computer in front of me. But every time you make a comment, it goes boop, and it pops up, and I hear it so that I can know somebody else is asking a question, making a comment, like Doris Mitchell. Good morning from Conroe. Good morning, Doris. Thank you for watching over in Conroe. Hi, Sarah. Glad you're up this morning. Good morning to you as well. Good morning from Austin. Hi, Elizabeth. And Austin's kind of, when you look at the hot spots, they're still dealing with some issues as well. Certainly, if you're going to talk Texas hot spots, though, you got to talk about Hidalgo County. You got to go down to the border. They're really, talk about overwhelming the healthcare system. All right. So that being said, you're more than willing and more than able to post. So you might as well post up some things, some questions, some comments. Like I said, if I can't get to you today, then I will read your thought. Let's see. Sarah Rayford. I had a friend who tested positive but was able to manage it at home while they quarantined. That's very common, Sarah. A majority of people, again, the majority of the people who are going to test positive, who are going to get the coronavirus, are going to be able to just stay home. CDC, by the way, changing the numbers. Originally, they said 14 days. If you were testing positive, that you had to stay home 14 days, self-quarantine. Now they've kind of scaled that back. They're saying 10 days is sufficient. So again, not everyone is going to get violently ill. Not everyone is going to have to go to the hospital. Also, maybe hospice can assist those at home with coronavirus. Again, majority of the people, I think, Mary, probably aren't going to need a really big assist. Most people, you just weather it like you would, and I hate to use this analogy because it always like the flu, but like the cold, like the flu, and then things improve, you feel better, and hopefully, you're back into the groove and you're going again. So, again, I hate to make those comparisons, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. And how many of us have known someone who has tested positive? Here's the other thing about testing. Right now, testing, the issue that I'm hearing from most of you or most people is, I've been tested, but I'm still waiting for someone to give me a result. I've been waiting 10 days, 11 days, 12 days. By the time you've done that, even if you were positive, that's longer than the 10 days that you were supposed to quarantine from the CDC. Now, the important thing is, though, if you test positive and you still feel good, please don't go running around. I don't want it. I don't want to take a chance. Certainly there are a lot of factors that weigh in there. If you're younger, it's probably not going to hit you quite as hard as if you're older, if you have underlying conditions. We've been told, and obviously from the people that have died here in Southeast Texas in Jefferson County, we've been told all but I think 3 of the deaths have been with underlying health conditions. So that certainly is something else to consider. All right. Leave you this morning with the reminder. Again, there are a lot of ways that you can stay in touch with things that are going on. If you're still a little bit nervous, and I think we have every right to be nervous about, tropical storms, after Imelda, after Harvey, after all that we've been through. I think we have to be a little nervous, a little gun shy. When something like this happens, you start thinking, oh, it's coming again. But no, I was talking about perspective because I was thinking this morning that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we covered the weather, it was so much different. If we had a tropical storm, we'd go, oh, there's a tropical storm. It looks like it might be something. But now we have tools that are better so that we can go and we can see these things up close. And, we can look at them and go, oh, look, here's the projected track. Here's where it's going. By the way, you can also, you're here on the KFDM page right now on Facebook. You can find Dana. It does a great job, Greg, Chad, of constantly updating the information so that you can go and see what's happening and you can see the tracks and you can find out what's going on. Here's another good example. Dana has posted. So if you want to know, there's lots of information at your fingertip so you can go out there and do for yourself. As we have encouraged you from the very beginning, do not depend on someone else to educate you. That's your job. You go and educate yourself, because there are a lot of great ways to do that, a lot of information. And I want to believe that KFDM.com is one of the easiest. If you're on the internet already, go and check it out. KFDM's Facebook page as well. All right. We'll keep an eye on things. We'll be updating at noon today. Dana will be back on KFDM TV with Tan Radford. He'll have the latest. And, of course, also today at 5, 5:30, 6, 9, 10. You get the idea. And straight on through the weekend, we'll keep you updated. All right. I am out of here. It's the weekend. I have every intention of going and enjoying. I'm going to go mow a yard. That's what I'm going to go do right now, because I have time. Sun's still shining. Till it starts raining, I got time to go take care of some yard work. That's my plan to get out. It's easy to social distance when you're in the middle of a backyard pushing a mower. Also, of course, remind you to reach out to somebody you think just might, could use a little help from you. It's easy to do. And don't forget, there are a lot of blood drives going on. LifeShare is saying if you'll come donate blood, we'll let you know if you have any antibodies. Maybe you've been exposed. Maybe you've had COVID and you didn't know it. That's one way for you to find out. They have an event coming up this weekend, I believe, down at the Museum of the Gulf Coast. You can find out more by Googling them as well. As always, thank you, my friends, for joining us today. I do appreciate it. And we will be back here on Monday. We'll see you on the television show bright and early, beginning at 4:30 a.m. And then, of course, back here on our Facebook Live, Dan's at-home update. Want to remind you, too, that you can check things out not only at the KFDM News Facebook page, but also follow me on Twitter. That's Morning TV Dan. And on YouTube, we're trying to send things over there so you can watch the same broadcast there. YouTube, it's at Dan's at Home. All right. Again, appreciate the thoughts, the likes, the comments, the many ways that you send things out to us. We do watch them. We do want to know what's important to you, and we feel like this is one way to do it. So again, we will continue as long as there is an audience and as long as there is an interest. We'll do this. All right. Until next time, go out and make it a terrific day. Stay safe, and we'll talk again very soon.